Greetings YouTube, JC, Bad Edit Pro with a video about audio, and today we're going to talk about this cartridge. This is the Shure M105E, and before we get to talking about that, let me say that I hope all of my friends on the East Coast are battened down and ready to face Hurricane Irene. My hometown, not where I'm living now, but where I grew up, is getting ready to get hit pretty hard, and I was talking to the family today, and looks like everybody's got all their supplies and they're ready to face whatever comes. But for those of you up in the Northeast, man, don't take it light. If you've ever been through a hurricane, and I've been through 2 or 3 of them in my life, they are scary things, and they haven't had one this strong head up there in a long time. So I sure hope that everything works out and it's not as bad as they say it might be. Now, let's talk about this particular cartridge. As you may recall, during the video that I made about my Technics SL-Q300 turntable, I mentioned that when I bought my particular model, it had come with the Shure M105E cart, and unfortunately the stylus on that cartridge was in really poor shape. So I was playing around with some other carts. I ordered the Audio-Techinca AT92ECD. We just did a video about that. But I had an audio epiphany today, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. You will no doubt remember this cartridge if you've been watching my videos for a while. This is the Shure M97xE, and it was all the rage in the audio world about a year ago. Now, the cart tracks very, very well. It has this stabilizer brush on it, and it does a really nice job of playing records. However, I had a lot of electronic issues with this cartridge. I tried it on 4 different turntables, and it just sounded dim and dull on everything that I put it on. However, if you look at the technical specifications, you'll see that the stylus itself is very fine. It is a hyper-elliptical stylus, henceforth the XE, because it's an extreme elliptical, and it is very, very well made. Matter of fact, this stylus goes for, scrolling down to the bottom of the page to get to it, $75. That's just for the stylus, not for the cart. They'll sell you the cart for about $85 or $90, but the stylus is really the big cost of the cartridge. When I bought the Technics turntable, I started looking for styluses to go in the M105 cartridge, and I couldn't find anything that really caught my attention. This is the LP Gear site. They have 3 styluses listed, and one of them is the N104, and then they have a upgrade stylus, they call it, and I don't quite know what the deal is with that, but none of those really, caught my attention. So I decided to go ahead and get an Audio-Techinca AT92ECD and give that a shot on the turntable. I've got 3 or 4 P-mounts lying around. You can look at the video for the turntable to see those. But anyway, I was sitting there today and I just realized out of the blue that this stylus, which is supposed to go on the M97xE, is just about the same size as the one that was on the M105E. So you know what I did? I took this stylus off of the M97xE, which has just been sitting around for quite a while now, and stuck it on the M105E, and it is one of the most amazing sounding cartridges I think I have ever heard. The combination of that body and this stylus is amazing. Here are the basic specifications for the M105E, and this is all the information I could find on this cartridge. They were produced by Shure in the 80s and maybe into the 90s, and I think they had stopped production by 2000. This was one of their very high-end P-mount cartridges, and as you can see, it's rated at 20 to 20,000 with 25 dB of separation at 1 kilohertz, and pretty standard specifications. But unlike the M97xE half-inch body, this cartridge actually is bright and has some high end to it. So the combination of the new stylus and the old cartridge body turns out to be a real winner, and it is the best sounding stylus cart turntable combination that I have reviewed so far. Now, if you want to know what this sounds like, all you got to do is look at the video called the Shure M97xE audio sample, because Basically what I did, I used the Shure M97xE to make that recording, and then I equalized it to restore the dimness that the cart itself was inducing. And the equalized recording that I posted sounds just like the cart live. Now, of course, this is YouTube, and they compress the audio and they mess things up a bit. So it's not going to be, exactly the way it sounds live, but you're going to get a good idea. By the way, the 25 dB of stereo separation is a very conservative number, and if you listen to that audio sample, you'll hear that. I think it's pretty safe to say that the M105E and the N97xE Stylus is the best sounding P-mount cartridge that I have heard so far of all the ones that I have picked up and reviewed and put up here on the YouTube channel. Keep in mind, though, we're talking about a cartridge that was relatively expensive for the day. I can't nail down a price, but as I recall, these were around $100 or even more years and years ago when they were in production. And the N97xE Stylus is $75. And most of the P-mount cartridges we've talked about have been on the lower end of the price range, of course. Let's go through some of those and talk a little bit about how they compare. The first one that we're going to look at is the M92E from Shure, which is the current Shure P-mount cartridge. And these are available for around $20 to $25, depending on where you find them. And it's a pretty good performer, but it does not match up to the detail you get from that hyper-elliptical stylus, and it has a 0.4 by 0.7 stylus. The stereo separation is better than the rated stereo separation. The specs say it's about 20 dB. It performs better than that. Not up to the Audio-Techinca or the Shure M105E, but still not bad at all, and it's better than the Stanton. So this is still a good value, but it does have some issues tracking certain records and tends to pick up some inner groove distortion. The AT92ECD, which is the most recent cartridge that we talked about here, this is probably the best sounding for the money that you pay, which is what I said in the last video. It's got great stereo separation, a 0.3 by 0.7 stylus, tracks well at 1.25, which is standard for these P-mount turntables, and just a very nice sounding cartridge. It is extremely bright, and for some people it's too bright. I like cartridges to be somewhat bright, but this one is probably the brightest of the bunch. So if that's something that you don't like, well, you might want to look at something else. The cartridge does a very good job at resisting sibilance and distortion. However, I have to say once again that the Shure brings out a lot more detail, and we're talking about the N97xE Stylus, not the M92E cartridge. Has a lot more detail and tracks very nicely on my Technics turntable. Better than this one. It's a pretty amazing sounding thing we're talking about here. Still, this is probably the best bang for the buck out there. You can get one of these now on Amazon for $25, and that includes shipping. So if you're restoring a P-mount turntable of dubious quality, this would be the cartridge I would definitely recommend that you'd buy. The Stanton L320E has been in and out of production for a long time. Essentially, this is a Stanton 500 body that you can use as a P-mount. It's got a P-mount plug on it, and it takes the D71EE stylus. Now, you can put any of the styluses that the 500 or the Pickering V15 would take, and that is a vast amount of styluses because you have the entire Pickering and the entire Stanton world to choose from. The D71EE works best in a P-mount environment, and it'll track okay at 1.25. You get a bit of sibilance with this cartridge, just like all the other Stanton cartridges I have ever tried. They seem to be have a sibilance issue. I don't know why, but the Stanton cartridges do. And the stereo separation probably is the least of all of the cartridges we're talking about here. The M92E from Shure beats this in the stereo department, but it's a solid sounding cartridge with relatively low distortion, and the output's a little low too at 3.2, but hey, some people just like that Stanton sound. I used to years ago when you could get the good styluses, but the styluses now for Stanton cartridges are so up and down. And finally, we have the OMP 10, which is the Ortofon P-mount cartridge that's available today. This cartridge is rather expensive, and the styluses for the cartridge are, the 10 stylus is relatively cheap. This is probably the one that doesn't perform up to any of the other cartridges standards. It seems to have a limited frequency response, and it's rather dim on the high end. It tracks relatively well, though. But what I have been told is that the thing to do with these cartridges is to get a 20 or a 40 stylus and put in it. However, an Ortofon 20 stylus is going to cost you about $138. So you might want to look for the M105 and get the N97xE stylus. You're going to get excellent performance and save you some bucks, because this cartridge here is going to cost you a good $90 to begin with, and the stylus upgrade is going to add $138 to that, so you're going to be ending up spending like $220 on a P-mount cartridge. You better have a good turntable if you're going to do that combination. So anyhow, I just wanted to pass this information along to you in case you come across one of these cartridges. It's definitely worth looking into getting the N97xE stylus and checking it out on a really good P-mount turntable, because the performance is just second to none. It's the best sounding cartridge combination that I have tried of anything that I have reviewed here. Unfortunately, the M105E is out of production, but you may be able to run across a body in decent shape somewhere and then upgrade the stylus if you should so desire. Now, if you don't want to go through all that trouble, I recommend the AT92ECD, which is a lot cheaper and performs very, very well in the P-mount class. And that's the best P-mount that I had heard so far up until doing this little experiment. So anyway, JC, Bad Edit Pro, thanks for watching the video. We'll talk to you again soon. Stay safe, everyone. If you're on the East Coast, hope you come through with no damage and no big problems, no like water in your living room and stuff like that. I've been through that before, and it is no fun. Talk to you again soon.